Now to our cover story tonight. Election meddling seems to be a trend now. It started with the US, then there were charges in the French election, murmurs in the German election, and now the Russians, interestingly, are blaming entities from as many as 15 countries of having tried to influence their presidential poll, though Vladimir Putin won. How do they do it is the question. The new headliner is a UK-based data analytics firm. It's called Cambridge Analytica. It apparently influenced the US presidential election, and it did so with the help of Facebook user data. We'll come to the technology aspect of it later. The more important question at the moment is, how did this firm get access to the Facebook data of millions of users? And the even more important question would be, is India prone to similar meddling in its upcoming election? Here's a report.
I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me.
The United States of America shocked the world by electing Donald Trump as president in 2016 elections. While the world was contemplating reasons behind his unimaginable victory, it came to light that it wasn't a plain fair win. It was discovered that Russia had meddled in the US elections to damage Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and to make Trump win. And as we all know by now, all of that false propaganda to influence the US elections was done using social media, primarily Facebook. And now there's more to the story.
It's not just Russia's meddling efforts alone that played a key role in swaying the election in favor of Donald Trump.
New reports claim that the UK-based data analytics firm Cambridge Analytica, which worked with Donald Trump's election team, had harvested private information from more than 50 million Facebook users and developed techniques to support President Trump's 2016 election campaign. Whistleblower and Cambridge Analytica co-founder Christopher Wylie spoke on British television about how the company managed to collect private user data.
Well, this new twist in the controversial story not only highlights a big Facebook data breach, but it also brings up a lot of questions. How did Cambridge Analytica manage to collect user data of millions of people which was used to influence elections? Did Facebook play the role of a facilitator here? And if not, how did this happen under the nose of Facebook? What does Facebook have to say in this entire episode? And most importantly, how fairly can future elections be conducted in this digital world?
Let's address it layer by layer, understand it step by step. The first question, how did Cambridge Analytica collect data of millions of Facebook users? Whistleblower Christopher Wylie reveals that Cambridge Analytica collected users' personal information from Facebook without authorization in early 2014. Facebook explains that Alexander Kogan, a psychology professor at the University of Cambridge, collected data through an app that requires users to sign up using Facebook login. And it was legitimate, but what he did later was against Facebook privacy policies. He then passed on that data to Cambridge Analytica, which was a part of Trump's digital army. British lawmakers are demanding an explanation from Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, I'm going to be writing to Mark Zuckerberg asking that either he or another top executive at the company give evidence to the committee to make clear what Facebook knew about this breach of their users' data, why they didn't take action against Cambridge Analytica sooner, and why they've not informed the users whose data was taken. And the reason it's important to us to ask those questions is we asked very similar questions the last time Facebook gave evidence to the committee. They were unable to provide satisfactory answers then, or to follow up with the written information that we required. And people will rightly have concerns about how effective Facebook are at protecting their users from bad actors gaining their data.
How did Cambridge Analytica use user data to influence voters? Cambridge Analytica specializes in psychographic profiling, which means that the collected data was used to understand user preferences and create personality profiles of voters. They were then targeted with specifically tailored content and personalized political advertisements.
Basically, data collected by Cambridge Analytica was used to determine what interested people in which parts of the region and what was resonating where. In short, the campaigns and slogans that voters wanted to see and hear was customized using this data.
For instance, if people, say in a county in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, showed interest in hearing about immigration, Trump would go there and deliver an immigration-focused speech. You would be surprised to know that the online data of users was also used to plan Trump's schedule. In short, user behavior and their interests were analyzed and the campaign was designed around the same, irrespective of whether Trump actually believed in it or not. The third question: did Facebook play the role of a facilitator in the entire episode? No, Facebook didn't have a direct role. In fact, the data was collected in a legitimate way and through proper channels by a Cambridge University professor in his capacity as an app developer. But he shared the information with the firm without authorization. Question number 4. How did it happen under Facebook's nose, and what does Facebook have to say? Facebook says that when it learnt of this violation in 2015, they removed the controversial app that aided in collecting user data and demanded certifications from the professor and all parties he had given data, ensuring the information had been destroyed. According to Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, Professor Kogan and whistleblower Wiley certified the destruction of data. But the social network major later found. It released a statement which said, and I quote, "Contrary to the certifications we were given, not all data was deleted. We are moving aggressively to determine the accuracy of these claims. If true, this is another unacceptable violation of trust and the commitments they made. We are suspending Cambridge Analytica, Wiley and Kogan from Facebook, pending further information."
Facebook may not be responsible for this huge data breach, but the social network is definitely facing mounting pressure over privacy issues. The company is now under fire from both the US and the UK for consistently downplaying the risk of data breaches.
But an even more important question that now pops up is if there is any link between Russia's efforts at election meddling in the US and controversial Cambridge Analytica, and can data science be the key to winning or losing an election in the days and months to come? Bureau Report, WION.
So to answer that question, let's understand how firms like Cambridge Analytica operate. Every time we perform an online activity, we leave a digital trace. Analytics firms capture and collate these traces to construct a pattern. They understand and record your preferences. They build profiles that can be bunched together and targeted. UK-based Cambridge Analytica happens to be one of the popular data mining companies with various high-profile clients. Donald Trump was only one of them. This firm offers services to businesses and political parties which want to change their audience behavior. It works for political, government and military institutions across the globe. Cambridge Analytica collects user data from different sources such as Facebook and Twitter. It studies them to create profiles. It outlines users' interests, preferences and behavioral patterns. This data can then be used to target people with customized messages and advertisements. In the case in point, the firm reportedly exploited Facebook data from 50 million profiles without authorization. The exercise began in 2014. Facebook data was illegally obtained and harvested to develop propaganda to support President Donald Trump's 2016 election campaign. So why should someone sitting in, say, Bangalore or Mumbai worry about what happened in the US? Because they're most probably part of this big data game, you and me. Political parties in India are waking up to what a potent tool technology is. Some of them are in talks with Cambridge Analytica, this particular company, to help map out election strategies. And why just India? Parties in other poll-bound nations like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are also turning to your social media posts to fine-tune their political messaging. Take a look.
They are said to be behind Donald Trump's unexpected win in the 2016 US elections. Is the company accused of harvesting personal data without the consent of Facebook users now in talks with political parties across South Asia? Indian media reports say Cambridge Analytica's India partner OBI has held preliminary talks with both the Congress and the BJP for a potential collaboration for the 2019 Indian general elections. One media report also says the company had given an opposition party in India a presentation and had chalked out a data-driven strategy to target voters on social media, analyzing online user behavior and connecting the dots across different citizen databases. It seems the company has worked previously with the ruling JDU for the Bihar Assembly elections in 2010. On its website, Cambridge Analytica says its client achieved a landslide victory with over 90% of total seats targeted by CA being won. Not just India, it seems the company is reaching out to top political players in other countries in South Asia in the run-up to key elections in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Reports say the company has held talks with former Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who's making a bid to get re-elected in 2020, and with Bangladesh's ruling Awami League, which is seeking re-election in 2019. If these reports are indeed true, then data could hold the key to crucial elections in India and its neighborhood, whether voters like it or not. Bureau Report, WION.
So what does the law say about data protection and online privacy across the world? We're starting with the US because that is the country that is at the center of this massive controversy. America has been reluctant to regulate e-commerce activities that could hamper growth. In this particular case involving Facebook, the extent of damage is yet to be assessed because different states in the US have different laws. Experts also say that the existing federal laws are not sufficient to cover the broad range of issues that make the new digital environment a threat to personal privacy. But existing laws in the US restrict the interception of electronic communication. They prohibit the access to stored data without the consent of the user. Let's talk about India. Despite several private member bills, Parliament of India has not yet enacted any specific law defining privacy. There is no law that provides protection against breach of privacy of individuals. The Constitution of India has provided the law relating to privacy under the scope of Article 21. India's IT Act, Information Technology Act, provides protection against unauthorized access of the computer system by imposing heavy penalty up to 1 crore rupees. The unauthorized downloading, extraction and copying of data are also covered under the same penalty. What happens in the UK? It's among the most fined nations in Europe for data protection breaches. In the UK, Data Protection Act provides privacy to its citizens. As per this act, personal data can be obtained only for one or more specified and lawful purposes. In the European Union, the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights stipulates that its citizens have the right to protection of their personal data. Under the General Data Protection Regulation, if any entity is found breaching privacy of users, then there are two levels of fines. The first is up to 10 million euros, that's 2% of the company's global annual turnover, that's the second category. While in the second, it's up to 20 million euros or 4% of the company's global annual turnover of the previous financial year. The EU takes privacy so seriously, they want to the fine to be 100 million euros. India certainly is a long way from any such regulation. That's something that we urgently need in this country as well. Russia has armed Vladimir Putin with a historic and unprecedented mandate, his fourth presidential term. He'll rule the world's largest nation for another 6 years. Our next report talks about the election that was a farce and the president who rules like a czar.
This is what victory looks like, even if it's your fourth. Russia's majority has spoken, and this man, Vladimir Putin, will rule the world's largest country for 6 more years, till 2024. Declaring his victory in below freezing temperatures in Moscow, Putin promised his supporters a better and a brighter future.
Я вижу в этом как минимум признание того, что сделано за последние годы в очень сложных условиях. Вижу в этом доверие и надежду. Надежду наших людей на то, что мы будем работать так же напряженно, так же ответственно и еще более результативно. Спасибо, что у нас такая мощная, многомиллионная команда. Нас ждет успех! Да!
A former KGB spy, he's dominated Russian politics for 18 years. At the age of 65, he is already the country's longest-serving leader since Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. The landslide re-election marks a meteoric rise in Putin's performance. This time, he's won 76.7% votes as compared to 63.6% in 2012 elections. So what happened to the other contenders in this one-horse race? His nearest competition, millionaire communist Pavel Grudinin, received about 12% votes. while ultra-nationalist Vladimir Zhirinovsky took 5.7%. Former reality TV presenter Ksenia Sobchak got 1.7%, while veteran liberal politician Grigory Yavlinsky received just over 1% of the vote. There are mixed feelings in the country.
My favorite president was elected. We have a big day in our family. We are very glad.
This is terrible because it's unfair. I did not vote because I think it is not necessary. This is my choice.
The man who finished second to Putin with just 12% votes has called these elections the filthiest in the country's history.
Yes, as head of Russian Central Election Commission, Ella Pamfilova said, it was the greatest election and the filthiest one in the current post-Soviet era. That's why I have no regrets. I feel sorry that my opponents and people who organized the election, as well as those in power, made such a filthy political show out of this election.
But Putin has many battles to fight. The country has seen purchasing power decrease continuously for the past 4 years after the economy was hit with international sanctions for annexation of Crimea in 2014, especially in the provinces.
The prices are insane. And what will happen next? Will they go up even more? You ask me, what can I buy? I can't buy anything.
With a massive and historic mandate, Putin has tightened his grip on Russia for another 6 years. His relations with the West are on a hostile trajectory, and back home, issues like economy and corruption demand his immediate attention. What will the strongman do? The world is watching. Bureau Report, WION.
The world certainly is watching now that Putin is here to stay for the foreseeable future. We're also looking at what it means for the stakeholders outside Russia. Last year, remember, India and Russia marked 70 years of diplomatic relations with a successful summit in that country. President Putin's re-election is reason to cheer for India, say most experts. The Modi-Putin meeting last year led to an agreement for 2 more nuclear reactors at Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu. India and Russia have worked closely in the area of defense with technology and expertise from Russia. India has been able to set up an indigenous nuclear submarine program. Moscow continues to back New Delhi's demand for reform at the United Nations, which also includes India's bid for a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. The Kremlin has also not shied away from publicly announcing its support for India's membership to the Nuclear Suppliers Group. There is enough evidence to suggest that Vladimir Putin is bullish about Russia's relationship with India. But there are concerns as well. To gain a foothold in Afghanistan, for instance, Russia in recent years has allegedly been reaching out to Pakistan and the Taliban. These overtures could have ramifications for Indo-Russian ties. But Russia's growing proximity with China could be the bigger concern for New Delhi. There is increasing convergence between Moscow and Beijing on global issues. Both countries can be seen backing each other's positions at the United Nations Security Council. Experts also believe that economic relations are the strategic basis for the deep Sino-Russia relations. China remains Russia's biggest trading partner and the largest Asian investor in Russia. So the road ahead looks smooth, but there are going to be some roadblocks, and that's something that both sides will have to work together on. Russian President Putin is also one of the strongest leaders in the world today. Russians have given him a commanding mandate, but Western powers have not been kind to him. Tensions between Russia and the West continue to rise, and Putin's return is going to do little to cool things down.
He was a KGB spy who witnessed the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, by securing a 4th term in office, Vladimir Putin has emerged as one of the most powerful leaders in the world. Vladimir Putin's political and diplomatic moves are engineered towards establishing Russia as a superpower. But the United States and European nations see Putin as a political and military threat. Russia's alleged meddling attempts in the run-up to the 2016 US elections has put Russia back at the center of political discourse in the country. Investigations into the election meddling accuses Putin of interfering in the 2016 elections and tilting it in Trump's favor. But Russia was not taken that seriously before the elections. When Republican presidential candidates John McCain and Mitt Romney listed Russia as a security threat During their campaigns, their claims were dismissed by members of the Democratic Party with a laugh. Former President Barack Obama, throughout his 8-year tenure, referred to Russia as a regional power. President Putin did not take these words too kindly. European countries also accused the Kremlin of meddling in their affairs. The UK government has accused President Putin of influencing the Brexit vote. The poisoning of former Russian spy Sergei and his daughter Yulia Skripal has led to a diplomatic standoff between Russia and the United Kingdom. As usual, Moscow denies all charges. The Europeans also struggle to combat Russia's annexation of Crimea and Kremlin's continuing intervention in eastern Ukraine. Beyond the United States and Europe, Russia's rise in West Asia, specifically Syria, has become a headache for Western countries. President Putin has managed to cement Russia's position in Syria through military intervention. Putin is also attempting to reshape politics in Eurasia by joining hands with China through creation of regional institutions like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Putin's ties with Western powers continues to remain tense, but a permanent fight could lead to Russia's isolation in the world. Russia cannot afford that. Sanctions have crippled the country's economy. The fall in oil prices led to a collapse in the value of Russia's ruble. A powerful Putin gives a psychological boost for the struggling Russian middle class. Bureau Report, WION.
As one analyst put it, the real drama in this election begins after the election is over. This is the time when Vladimir Putin is going to decide on his core team. With the election out of the way, the Russian president is looking to get back to business. What is different about this win is that Putin left his party to contest as an independent candidate, which means that the Russian to his cabinet, he didn't really need one. He rules like a dictator, but will he make those changes is also a million-dollar question. 14 political parties had extended their support to Vladimir Putin for this election. It would not be a surprise if the Russian president accommodates all of them within his cabinet, or at least some of them. One report in the Russian media claims that the number of deputy prime ministers can be increased from 9 to 12. But who will be Putin's prime minister? As per Russian law, the incumbent prime minister is obliged to resign after the inauguration of the president, who can then either appoint a new prime minister or reassign the current one. Russian media reports have named as many as 9 other candidates in the run-up to the polls, but the incumbent prime minister, Dmitry Medvedev, at the moment remains the front-runner for that job. Vladimir Putin is also expected to have a wide-ranging agenda for his 4th term. Reviving the economy is the biggest challenge before the Russian president. So far, the Russian economy has remained largely dependent on oil for revenues, but the recent collapse in oil prices led to a massive drop in the value of the ruble. Sanctions by the US and the European Union have made the situation worse. Putin has vowed to lift Russia's middle class, who have struggled in these difficult times. That was an election promise, and we know what happens to most of them. The Russian president will also aim to consolidate Russia's position in Syria. Syrian forces backed by Russia are closing in on the last rebel strongholds. Russia is unlikely to pull out of Syria anytime soon, even when it continues to face criticism for targeting civilians in places like eastern Ghouta. Western powers will be closely watching Russia's move in Ukraine and other neighboring countries. A conflict serves Putin's interests. One can expect more attempts from the Kremlin to bring former Soviet Union states under its sphere of influence.